This is my audience. Driving. Such a mundane task, most of us take it for granted. I'm sure that you've blacked out for a second or two on your everyday commute, not paying attention or looking down at your phone for a text or a call. This is unsafe because you are driving a 2-ton vehicle going 70 miles an hour. And my point is, people aren't perfect. They get forgetful, they get distracted, they get tired. These these problems are solved by my subject today, and the subject today is driverless cars. Now, I'm going to hit 4 points today: the history of driverless cars, the safety of them, the quality of life that they can have, and also I'm going to end with a cautionary tale. In 2004, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, hosted a challenge where self-driving cars would compete in a 142-mile long trek through the desert. And the first year, nobody completed it. In fact, the furthest car got only 7.5 miles down the road. The next year, in 2005, they hosted the challenge again, and 195 teams competed, and out of them, only 5 were able to complete the course. In 2007, DARPA hosted the Urban Challenge, where 11 cars were driving on city streets, and out of them, 6 cars were able to complete. Now, I don't think driverless cars would have progressed this quickly if DARPA hadn't hosted this contest, urging them forward, making them strive for something tangible. In fact, the U.S. Department of Transportation is going to assist the vehicle automation even further by allocating $4 billion to it over the next 10 years. Currently, Google is the leader in self-driving cars, and they have logged 1.5 million miles on the road without a driver. They have a fleet of about 80 cars, and some of them are retrofitted from a Toyota Prius to some SUVs, but some of them are also brand new that they've made themselves. They don't even include a steering wheel or pedals. Ford, Nissan, and Audi also have their hat in the game with their own projects that they're doing right now. And while not technically a self-driving car, according to Tesla, their cars have automated features such as the ability to stay in highway lanes. They can set dynamic cruise control, where they can match the car in front of them, and they also have the ability to automatically change lanes. The most important reason for self-driving cars right now is safety. According to the National Center for Statistics and Analysis, in 2014, 2.3 million drivers were injured and over 32,000 people died from car-related fatalities. Now, 31% of them, or just under 10,000 people, were involved in alcohol-related crashes. And I believe that this could be completely, just utterly and completely solved by driverless cars. Their deaths, not that they were meaningless, but that they could have been just completely prevented. A driverless car will always go the speed limit. It will obey all traffic rules and regulations, it will stop at every stop sign, and the reaction time for the computer is significantly faster than the human reflexes can react to a situation. Now, that's not to say that safe drivers are necessarily unsafe. It's that safe drivers are put in a position where they could be hit by the unsafe drivers or even inexperienced drivers, someone just learning how to drive. And I think the important thing to note is human life is the most important thing that we have. And if we have to take the control away from humans to be able to keep that, then maybe that's what we should do. The third point I want to talk about is quality of life. When Google first tested their vehicles, they had Steve Mahan, a California resident who happens to be blind, test these vehicles. Now, this completely changed his way of life. He could be independent now. He didn't have someone driving him everywhere, or having to walk everywhere to get by. And even minor disabilities, even maybe some mental disabilities, but even minor disabilities such as loss of a limb, where they could still drive, but it would be impaired to the point that they would have to completely redo their whole car, or just be so inconvenient that it would degrade their quality of life, could be solved with driverless cars. And even if you don't have a disability, I think just some mundane tasks such as parking your car or a long commute could be alleviated with driverless cars. You could have your car drive you up to your work and then pull out your smartphone when you get off work and have it come back. That would solve so many issues with traffic congestion, or picking your kids up from school. I mean, no kids would have to be left to school now because their parents couldn't do it. The cars could automatically do that for them. I myself have had issues with driving. I didn't get my driver's license until I was 24 because I had such a fear that I would physically tremble when driving. And how many more people are like that, where these would solve their issues, where they don't even feel like there is an option for them? Lastly, I want to talk about the safety concerns. They can help safety, but I think there are some issues with it as well. In 2015, Charlie Miller and Chris Valasek were able to hack into a Jeep Cherokee. All they had was a laptop and a wireless phone, just a cell phone. And they got into the entertainment console of the Jeep, and from there they could control the windshield wipers, they could disable the brakes, they could cut the accelerator, just things like that. And while this isn't truly a driverless car, I think with the way technology is progressing, this could be a real threat. We are relying on technology so much so, and driverless cars will have wireless technology, that I think it's something that we should keep in the back of our mind whenever we are building these. A much more recent issue had happened in February of this year. One of Google's cars sideswiped a city bus. Now, what Google said was, we clearly bear some responsibility because if our car hadn't moved, there wouldn't have been a collision. No one was injured in this, as the car was only moving about 2 to 4 miles an hour. And this is the only issue that the car has had. This is the only collision that was caused by the Google car. But the technology is not perfect. America is a car country. We rely on just vehicles to transport our goods from East Coast to West Coast. If we allow driverless cars to become the norm, then I believe that jobs such as truck drivers and taxi drivers and pizza delivery boys, just everyday jobs like that, are going to be gone. And where are these people going to go? How many jobs are going to be lost? What's the effect going to be on the economy? We need to consider this. Tesla states that 2018 is their target date to introduce their cars, and Google's is 2020. That is super close. If we don't do something about it now and be mindful of it, the future is going to be upon us, whether we want it to be or not. To end this, I just want to let you know the past is prologue, and we should be mindful for the future.